Good afternoon. I see you're well underway. This is very exciting, and then there are lots of people waiting for their opportunity to sit in the seats that some of you are already sitting in. So this is great. I'm Bonnie Thornton-Dill. I'm Dean of the College of Arts and Humanities, and I want to welcome all of the alumni and students. This is our 11th Access2Alumni, and this is a wonderful event. I'm always excited to come to it and see that so many of you are excited to come to it because it brings students together with alumni who are really well positioned to offer valuable career advice, and it gives alumni a chance to see who our students are today and really help them out. And so it really is a win-win, I think, for everyone. So let me begin quickly by addressing first the format of the program. So particularly for those of you who are standing around and haven't been here yet, this is how you get into the action. So there are going to be 3 timed sessions where you'll have a chance to visit roundtables and the networking area, which is located in the back of the room. After about 15 minutes, Greg Schofer on our staff will ring a chime. Greg, that's your cue to ring the chime. Where are you? Greg? Okay. All right. He didn't know he was supposed to ring the chime now, so you could have a chance to hear what the chime sounds like. All right, I'll try that again. Did he come in the door yet? All right, well, we'll get to the chime when we find Greg. Okay. Yes, all right. In any case, it's our, oh, thank you, Greg. Very well done. So it's kind of our version, a modified version of musical chairs. So when you hear the chimes, please move to another table or to the networking area, or use it as an opportunity to have food and something to drink. As you think about tables that you're going to, I want to encourage you to go to tables outside your major field, or outside, or to a table that represents a field that you may not be quite so familiar with. Because you might be surprised to discover how, for example, an English degree can lead to a job in the Inspector General's office for the Prince George's County Police Department, or in an engineering firm, or how a women's studies degree might pave the way to becoming a director of a nonprofit organization, or how an American studies degree leads to a flourishing law career, or a theater degree might lead to a flourishing law career. So don't limit yourself. This is an opportunity, as we always say, to move outside your comfort zone and stretch your horizons. And then I also want to encourage you not to be shy. I know there are both introverts and extroverts in the room. Some of you are ready to work every table, and others of you are maybe a little bit more uncomfortable with doing that, and you can just kind of slip quietly to a table and sit and talk with people, and we'll both benefit from this event. Then I want to thank the Arts and Humanities Alumni Association Chapter Board for sponsoring this afternoon's event. With those of you who are on the Alumni Association Chapter Board, please stand. Where are you? Okay, good. Thank you so much. And then for those of you who haven't become alumni yet, this is another way you can serve your college. And then I also want to thank Anna Gavin, who's a member of the Alumni Board, for donating Apple products that some lucky student will soon win. So with that kind of segue, that's my segue, so that's going to lead me to my next task before I introduce our keynote presentation, and that's choosing the raffle winners for the RSVP challenges. So the first drawing is for the first 100 students who RSVP'd through Facebook for a chance to win a $50 iTunes card. So I'm supposed to close my eyes and pick a number. The winner is Shanice Gentle. Is Shanice here? All right, Shanice. Okay, Erica will. Okay. And then we have one more drawing, right? Okay, the second drawing is for the April Fool's Day Challenge. And this is for students who responded to a Facebook post on April 1st. The prize is an iPod Touch. And the winner is, actually there's no prize. No, April Fool's. Okay, Sigal Sig. Have to be here to win. Is Sigal here? Oops, sorry, Sigal. Okay, next one. Chelsea Chakura Randall. Chelsea, going once, going twice. You don't mess around here, you gotta be here, so, you know. All right, these are all sick. Taylor Wilson. Oh boy, I'm not, okay. Okay, and if you arrived promptly at 4 p.m., you are eligible for the next drawing to win an iPad mini, which we will announce shortly. Erica is walking around, or she has walked around. She will, okay, so we've got all the entry tickets. So stay tuned for more announcements about prizes. There'll be another opportunity to win this Apple product. So now I'm going to turn to our keynote presentation. It's really my pleasure, and I'm really excited to introduce to you our 2014 Access2Alumni guest speaker, John Kelly, who's a 1984 graduate of our English department and a daily columnist for the Washington Post. When we want insight into everyday life in Washington, D.C., outside of the halls of Congress, or other than kind of national headlines, you know the place where many of us look is John Kelly's column in the Washington Post. Since 2004, he has ruminated on the district, its citizens, its quirks, its history, and current happenings. In the span of any given week, John can move from the stirring to the hilarious to the bizarre. In recent columns, I found myself impressed by a group of women inspired to cycle from New York City to Washington this past winter, and chuckling out loud over a profile of the gravy train, said to be Washington's most unusual and hard to find food truck. So that's a project for you, finding the gravy train. John joined the Washington Post in 1989 when he was hired as deputy editor of the weekend section. In 2000, he founded Kids Post, a daily page that explains world events to 8 to 12-year-olds. 4 years later, John became the third writer since 1947 to pen the newspaper's daily human interest column. He has been a Nieman Fellow at Harvard University and a visiting fellow at the Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism at Oxford University. I first met John last summer when the college selected him to receive the 2013 Outstanding Alumni Achievement Award. John accepted the award at the annual gala in October, and joining him at the gala was his wife, Ruth, also a Terp, an alum of the theater department, and she's also here speaking today about her career in law because she's now an accomplished attorney. That's where I got the example theater person. Ruth, where are you? There she is, back there. Thank you. We're so glad you're here. Anyway, it's been a joy getting to know John and Ruth, and I'm grateful for their continued advocacy of the arts and humanities. Recently, John's column featured our classics department when he wrote about the department's grant from the National Italian American Foundation to study the Roman influence on American identity. John said, and I quote, "The humanities are under siege these days as experts tell us that students should focus instead on the so-called STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, and math. I'm fine with those, but personally, I never liked a plant that was all STEM. Give me some flower petals. Give me the humanities." So thank you, John, for embracing the humanities so profoundly and publicly. Your work enriches our lives and helps us see the world differently. So without further delay, I present to you John Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you. I was just going to read that column that you quoted, but I guess I can't now. No. Greetings. I come to you from the future. At least that's the way it feels. I feel like a time traveler who's been sent here from the year 2044, 30 years from now, just like today, the year 2014, is 30 years from when I graduated, which was 1984. Does that make sense? I think I've done the math right, but I was an English major, so I'm not making any promises. I took one math course at Maryland. I got a C, and I was glad to get that. But I don't want to be one of those English majors who gets all ditzy when it comes to things like math or science, professing how dumb I am. I suck at math because I suck at math, not because I majored in English. So what did the humanities do for me? And more importantly, what did my degree from the College of Art and Humanities at the University of Maryland, College Park do for me? I suppose that's what I'm meant to talk about today. When Bonnie invited me to speak, she said I should talk about my career and how being an English major at Maryland influenced my thoughts about the world. She suggested I help you think about ways in which your degrees can help you in your careers, and talk about how useful your skills are, which all sounded rather daunting, to be honest. So instead of doing that, I thought I would do this. If I can get this to work. And that's to show you this picture. You can see it here, you can see it here. That is a picture of a squirrel wearing a massive horse's head, if you didn't know. It's called the Horsehead Squirrel Feeder, and it's sold by a novelty company called Archie McPhee, which is headquartered in Seattle. You can find them online, archiemcphee.com. And the way it works is this. You string this up wherever squirrels are known to congregate. You put peanuts inside the horse head, and then you wait. And when the squirrel comes up, you have to take your picture at exactly the right time, because otherwise it might look something like this. Let's see. Oops, no, not that one. Let's see here. Okay, there he is in there. That's good. Now let's see. Let's see if we can find the before picture. That's a good one. I like that one. He's looking right at the camera. There, he's taking it out. It does come off. So why am I showing you this picture other than it's a good picture? It's a great picture. And I'm not showing it to you because it's Squirrel Week. Every year I do a week's worth of columns about squirrels, and we're in the midst of Squirrel Week. And in fact, that photo ran in my column today, but I'm not showing it to you just to plug Squirrel Week. I'm sharing it with you because it was invented by David Wall. He didn't go to Maryland. He went to Oberlin, but we won't hold that against him. His invention, the Horsehead Squirrel Feeder, I wrote about today, and as I was interviewing him, I kept wondering, how do you prepare for a job where you invent horsehead squirrel feeders? What classes do you take? And David has invented not just the horsehead squirrel feeder, he also invented something called hander pants. Hander pants are underpants for your hands. They just go on your hands. He invented the yodeling pickle, which is a 5.5-inch long green plastic pickle that when you push a button, yodels. What do you study in college to invent a yodeling pickle? David's title at Archie McPhee is Director of Awesome. It's one of those West Coast things. And I asked him, well, what did you study in college? And he said, well, I was an English major. And I said, really? And this didn't hold you back at all? being an English major? He said, no, that's why I've been as successful as I have been. It's because I studied the humanities. He said, I quote, "The thing I use every day in my job is the broadness of my education, the ability to take in as many different things as I can." He said, "I never expected to use my familiarity with Jane Austen, Shakespeare, and Poe, but we do products based around them as well." His company sells a set of Jane Austen temporary tattoos. You can put Jane on your shoulder. They've got one that says Mr. Darcy. They have another one that says imprudent, one that says 10,000 pounds a year. They sell a William Shakespeare action figure and an Edgar Allan Poe air freshener. I shudder to think what Edgar Allan Poe smells like. It's probably like absinthe in Baltimore or something. David said, "The broadness of your interests really plays into your job." And I don't think he was just talking about his job or my job. He was talking about any job that you'd want to make a career out of. And that broadness, that ability to make connections, is what you'll bring with you when you leave the University of Maryland. And I encourage you to use that quality, for that's what sets an arts and humanities major apart from those who've studied other disciplines. This is not to say that we ARHUs, and I just learned that expression, ARHUs. We didn't have that when I went here. It means arts and humanities. It doesn't mean that we're allowed to be flighty or impractical because we've studied Jane Austen and things like that. We have to eat after all. Your challenge is to take the degree that you've earned here and all that you've learned here and apply it for the rest of your life, both at your job and outside of your job, in your life. Which brings me back, improbably enough, and I don't like this photo as much as I like the other one, so I'm going to change here. Which brings us back to squirrels. It all comes back to squirrels for me. Last year, we're in the 4th annual Squirrel Week. So last year was Squirrel Week 3, SW3. And I wrote a column about a management consultant from Anne Arundel County named Francie Dalton. And a few years ago, Francie was leading an executive retreat. She's a management consultant. There may be management consultants in our midst today at one of these tables. She was at an executive retreat, and her clients were just failing miserably. They were fighting with each other and sabotaging each other's ideas, and she was very dispirited, and she went home and she sat on her deck, and she relaxed by watching the squirrels out playing on her deck. And she decided that her clients could be better business people if they took a cue from squirrels. She jotted down 21 squirrel qualities that she feels are essential to business success. I won't read you all 21, but here are a few. She said, "Squirrels are early risers. Squirrels are highly industrious. Squirrels are not intimidated by those larger than they are. They are able to accomplish amazing feats because they're willing to try things that others believe are impossible. Squirrels are willing to be off balance, even to fall. Squirrels are sophisticated communicators." So you get the idea. Now, I'm not sure how far we want to take this metaphor, unless it's an analogy. We can ask the English professor at this table. Or if I even believe it, since squirrels also wind up flattened in the middle of the road a lot of times. But my point, I think, is this. Whatever you attempt, you will be rewarded for your creativity and your energy. You will be rewarded for the concrete skills you perfected here in terms of research and writing and communicating that will be vital in whatever job you do, even if it's not a job where you have to write every day. And you will be rewarded for some less concrete things as well, and that is this ability to make connections, to have an open mind, to sit and brainstorm and think, what can I make a lot of money with? That. To see a squirrel playing on a deck and think, how can I be inspired by that to help business people? You may not invent a squirrel feeder shaped like a horse's head. I hope you don't, because somebody already did invent it. You may not whip up a worldview based on the behavior of a woodland rodent, but you will be successful in your work if you remember what made you successful here. So thank you for letting me talk to you. Good luck. I would love to meet some of you at the table and in the back by the food afterwards, and I am now meant to open it to questions for the next 10 minutes. Questions to me, by the way, not to each other.
Hi, first I just want to say thank you for coming. I'm sure we all really appreciate it, and it was a really great speech. Just one question that I had was, you spoke a little bit about how you were an editor and now you're a writer, so how is that kind of different, editing other people's work and writing your own?
They both, her question, what's it like editing versus writing, and I was a freelance writer right before I went to the Post, and I really liked writing. I liked seeing my name in the paper. I liked sleeping late, all these things that writers can do. But I was hired by the Post as an editor, and I chafed against it at first. And I was an editor in various roles for 10 years at the Post. And then when I went to be a writer, I really liked writing. And the difference is an editor, I feel, has to be a grown-up. He has to be an adult, or she has to be an adult. And you have to love all your writers the same amount, the way you're meant to love all your children the same amount, and wipe their little bottoms. And so that can be annoying, but you also get to shape things. You know, I was an editor of a section, and I was editor of Kids Post, so you get to shape the look of something and not have to do every single job. And so there are attractions to that. But being a writer, I like as well, because you do see your name in the paper, and you get to indulge any curiosity that you have. It's very different skills, but I think you become a better writer by having been an editor, and vice versa, because you really see it from both sides. Undergraduate right here. I was a freelance writer, and I freelanced a lot for the Post, a lot of different sections, the weekend section, the travel section, the style section, anything I could do. And we can talk about this when I'm at the table here, about how basically if you never say no to anything, that's good for your career. But they had a temporary opening. They had a temporary opening for an editor in the weekend section, for which I freelanced for a long time. And they said, this is for 9 months, and then we're kicking you out after 9 months. And it's 25 years later. So I was able to stay, but it was a very non-traditional route. And in fact, when I took over this column 10 years ago, and the editor of the Metro section said, just give me a quick resume so I can write up an announcement. And I gave it to her, and she said, I don't know if I would have hired you. So it is a hard place to get a job, but there's lots of opportunities, not just at the Post now, but in, media, whatever that means these days. Yes, in the back. You are.
So you talk a lot about kind of what humanity meant to your career. I'm just wondering what's the most useful thing you got from undergrad? What?
The most useful thing I got from undergrad, I think it was the ability to read a lot of stuff and pick out from that stuff what was important. Because the only way you can get better as a writer is by being a reader. And you can, there's some sort of writing you can do where it's just sort of washing through you and you're not thinking about it at all. But, when you're an English major, that's not the sort of reading you do. You have to think about what you're reading, and you have to pluck the little nuggets out of it. And that is essential for being a journalist, because you're reading a lot, unless you're a sports reporter covering every day's game or something. But there's a lot of research involved, and even, can you read a person like you read a book? I think maybe you can. So that's the most important thing, is being able to just sort of consume tons of information and pick out what's important. Any other questions? Yeah, this gentleman.
So my question was more about media landscape of journalism. Because journalism landscape is so different, than it is 5-10 years ago, and it will be so different 5 to 10 years from now. How do you think that will affect the Post, which was bought by Jeff Bezos, but how do you think that will influence what we read? Because you talked about...
What you read?
Yeah, in terms of the Post and what we read just in general media or news.
That's a really good question, and I don't know. I mean, the thing that's been so annoying about the last 10 years is so many people saying they know exactly what's going to happen, and that people, newspapers should be doing this, or the media should be doing that, and, we've tried all sorts of things, hyper-local, spending lots of money to have every school lunch and kids' soccer league information online, and you can do that, but nobody wants to buy it, so you don't make any money on it. There are two things. There's advertising, and that's really been what the crisis in journalism has been, is the bottom dropped out of advertising. Craigslist and Monster.com and Cars.com, all these people who advertised in newspapers and paid my salary, they don't do that anymore. The journalism side has been affected by that because journalism is expensive to do. So now we look around to see how can we make money. Well, we need to get lots of clicks online, and what gets clicks? Well, it's, this squirrel stuck his head in a feeder, you'll never believe what happened next. Or 12 reasons, this squirrel looks like Lady Gaga, or whatever. And every paper is doing a little bit of that, but we have to also be able to cover Syria and, Malaysian Airlines and stuff like that. So I don't know what it will mean for what you read. I hope what it means is you will search out things that you want to read, because that's the big change. Is it used to be you sat back and you waited for somebody to throw a paper on your porch. Now you can go out and find what you like. So if you don't want 12 reasons this squirrel looks like Lady Gaga, you don't have to settle for that. You can go out and find WashingtonPost.com or TheGuardian.com or New York Times or whatever. I think it's time to give away another wonderful prize. So thank you for coming, and I look forward to meeting you.